Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much once again, ladies and gentlemen, for coming on to another show of Unsavory Politik, season 2. It's been a great year so far with a lot of covering things, and we're going to get right back into it with this show, talking about just the political climate that we are dealing with right now in the United States. And I think it's very, very important. We talk about every single aspect of what is possible here after the election. What should we expect? On everybody on this show, we talk about a lot on Donald Trump. We talk about a lot about Kamala Harris, Biden, all of them. So this show would definitely be covering Trump is on a very extensive level as well too. Today, I have a very special guest, for Bob Gatty, who is a author, podcaster, the founder of Lean to the Left podcast, and also has a book out. This previous book that was out was called Hijack Nation, and now he is back on the show. If you remember seeing him from Jabari Vok podcast, where he talked about this book, he now has a new book out called Hijack Nation Sequel. It's going to be dropping on the 25th. And about the time of you hear this recording, you should be able to, you could go right to the link and go and purchase this book. I'll have details and everything in the description. So without further ado, I want to bring on my guest, Bob Gatty.
Hey, thank you, Jamar. Really appreciate it.
Hey, how's it going, my friend?
It's going great. You know what? I really enjoyed you coming on my show, which is, by the way, going to stream later today on YouTube and all the major podcast audio channels. We had a good discussion, and I enjoyed it very much, Jamar.
Oh, thank you so much. I apologize about that scream showing right there.
That's all right.
We are still getting the kinks together. So I apologize about that. And yeah, I really, really enjoyed being on your show. Thank you for having me on. I think it was very, very good talk that we had, and I can't wait for people to listen to that.
Yeah, like the second time too,
Yeah. And you said that it's been a while.
Yeah, it's right.
So Hijack Nation, the sequel? I guess to begin with, what started you to write a second book about?
Well, I'll tell you what. The first one stopped covering the Trump political drama in 2020. That's when that book was published. It was published, by the way, in 2 volumes because I had over 500 pages altogether of essays from my blog site, which is also called Lean to the Left, leantotheleft.net. And so we decided late. It really wasn't until early September, late August, I guess it was, that a publishing company contacted me and said, "Hey, why don't you do a sequel?" And I thought, well, okay, if you want to publish it, I'll do it. And so, because usually the trick is to find a damn publisher. And so
Right.
Here I have a guy calling me up saying, "We think we can make a movie out of this, blah, blah, blah." And I'm going, "Yeah, I don't think so." But you never know. But the opportunity to bring this forward and talk about what's been going on in the Trump era since the close of those other 2 books, I thought was a great idea. So we did that, and we begin essentially this book with the January 6, 2021 insurrection, and we take it forward from there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And just to give the audience a refresher. What was it like seeing that all on the news for you when you saw what was going down on January 6th?
Oh my God. I mean, I sat here, I sat here watching that, and I couldn't believe that people were climbing the walls, breaking windows, using flagpoles to attack police. Uh, then they managed to get into the Senate chamber. I think it was a Senate chamber, and a bunch of them went up on the dais and uh, made speeches and said prayers. I would think they were fake prayers, but they were prayers. Everything about Trump is fake, so they probably were fake. So anyway, but I was shocked. I was shocked, and then to see an actual effigy where they wanted to hang Mike Pence because he wouldn't do the illegal act that Trump wanted him to do, which was to certify that other what do you call it? What are they called? Electors. Certify electors that were not real electors, and make him president again. And Mike Pence, who I never liked, but at least he had the courage to say no, where I'm not going to do that. That's not constitutionally allowed. And so they yelled, "Hang Mike Pence!" And they actually had a wooden gallows constructed on the grounds of the U.S. Capitol. Now, I worked in many years ago. I worked on Capitol Hill, and that that image was just horrendous for me to think about. I mean, I walked on those in those areas. I walked up those steps. I've been in that chamber where they were desecrating it and leaving things like feces and everything else.
Wow.
It was just a disgusting thing and very, very scary.
And your co-writer, did he also work on Capitol Hill before?
Actually, no, he did not. He is Chris Waldron is his name, and he is an English professor, sociology professor at a college here in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, where I live.
Okay.
And he's a co-writer with me on my blog site, on my Lean to the Left blog site, along with another contributor, Susie Hutchinson. Susie contributed several blogs that are in this book, and she's listed in the book as a co-writer.
Nice. What was the process? Now I want to talk about what I don't want you to reveal everything in the book. I know that that's not a nice thing to do.
Okay.
But give us a sequel summary of what we should expect reading part 2.
Okay. The book begins in the foreword of the book. I write about how the 2020 election really saved this country with the election of Biden and the dismissal of Donald Trump. I talk about how a 4-letter word, vote, saved this country, and I really do believe that. And then we get into the election denial and the insurrection. We get into some of the polarization that's been taking place in this country as a result of all of that. How people, friends are no longer friends. Family members won't talk to each other. I mean, I have that case in my own family. I have a brother who hates what I do, and how I'm after Trump all the time. And so the splits that have taken place in this country, I think, are very harmful. And I'm hoping that when this election is over, that Kamala Harris will be able to begin the healing process. I really do hope so. I was hoping that Biden would be able to do that, and he tried best he could. But the Republicans and Trump were after him every turn, every step of the way, everything he did. And today, if you hear the debates and the interviews, what does Trump do? He constantly returns to his hateful rhetoric about immigration and how immigrants coming into this country are rapists and criminals and so on and so forth. And it's just a horrible, disgusting thing.
Oh yeah, I can definitely agree with you on Trump's rhetoric.
Yeah.
I think it's important that, you know, when we talk about a fascist state,
Mm-hmm.
and they talk about Project 25, which Trump says he doesn't endorse, but
right.
he says he doesn't endorse a lot of things that seems to always fall in line with him.
Yeah. Well, Project 2025 is a horrible, dangerous document, over 800 pages, a manifesto of what this man wants to do if he returns to the White House. And our book in chapter 3 includes detailed discussion of the key components of Project 2025, talking about what it would do to the environment, what it would do to Social Security, what it would do to women's rights, and racial issues. All of that are detailed, wonderful essays written by Chris Waldron and our co-writer Susie Hutchinson. And the book is worth picking up just for that discussion alone. I've not seen a place where, in easy to understand language, you could find these kinds of discussions about the key components of 2025.
Yeah, I mean, would you say that Project 2025 is? Now, I ask this question because of the cabinet that we have now for the Supreme Court. Would you say that there is a very possibility that this can happen under a Trump presidency?
Oh, I do. I especially if the Republicans take over Congress, and I think that, you know, if Trump wins the president election, I think it's highly possible that he'll bring with him enough Republicans in the House and the Senate to take over control of both chambers. And if that happens, we are in deep doo-doo, in my opinion. I do.
Yeah.
I think that the key components of Project 2025 would find their way eventually into law. And some of those are really dangerous. I mean, they are even wanting to restrict contraception. Can you believe that? I cannot believe that. I mean, I can just see now you're in bed making love to your girlfriend or your wife, and over in the corner sits JD Vance, making sure that you're not using a condom, for crying out loud. Come on. Now that's an exaggeration, of course, but
no, I know.
But nevertheless, I mean, think about that. And women have an absolute right to ask a question: what does the government have to do? Why does the government have to have control over my body?
Right.
I have a right to control my own body. And
Right.
to say that there's not room in your bedroom for the government to be sitting there is absolutely true. It's just ridiculous.
I mean, yeah, I totally agree with you. One thing I wanted to talk to you about, which we have had conversations in the past. But why do you think because we can't deny the polling, and from your perspective, you feel that the Democratic Party has to regain democracy, and like, why do you think there's not a strong enough push? You already know my view, but this is your interview, so I don't want to. I want to hear your full honesty, because I really feel like that you are one of the true believers that actually put in the work that needs to be done. And why do you think that the Democrats aren't polling above as it was compared to the past when when Obama ran?
Well, that's a very difficult question. The polling, as we talked this afternoon, is basically showing that this race is neck and neck. However, I'm not sure I believe that. Over the last week, I've been concerned that perhaps Trump was going to pull this out. But in watching comments that I've seen on social media and stories that are coming out in the press about Trump and some of his activities and his supporters' activities, uh, how how he told a group of oil barons if they give him $1 billion for his campaign, he'd get rid of all the regulations that bother them, that cost them money, and lower their
Yeah, he's a sick
taxes in the
bastard.
process. That's
Yeah.
criminal. And then
Yeah.
then you've got this Musk guy who is running some kind of I don't know, what is it, a lottery or something. And basically all it is paying off people to vote for Trump. And
Yeah.
that's illegal. That's freaking illegal. And he ought to go to jail for that, which, by the way, is where Trump belongs. Just saying.
So you feel that the way they're doing is going to eventually help Harris win?
I think Harris is going to win. I'm not even sure it's going to be close, but that's just
Wow, Bob,
yeah.
come on.
I know you disagree with me on that.
You're on record here, Bob, saying that you don't think it's going to be close.
I know I am. I'm not afraid of sticking my neck out.
Okay, all right.
I might get it chopped off, but you never know. I mean,
no, we don't have to reiterate how I feel because people already know how I feel.
Okay.
But I feel that I'm saying how I feel. It's all. But for you, I think that it's important that I like how you're talking about what Trump is going to do, because I think it has not been reiterated enough for people to fully understand that.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, yes, I have very harsh, strong criticisms about the Democratic Party, and I feel that they could have done better in the past to prevent someone like the Trump to come into office. But we are here now, and
That's
this
right.
is the
I
present.
agree with that. Look, I have done work for the local Democratic Party here in South Carolina.
Mhm.
I am a strong Democrat, but I also recognize that politicians are politicians, and that unfortunately, sometimes the rhetoric gets ahead of what they actually do. And here in South Carolina, the African American community, in my opinion, is treated like crap. And it's not just the discrimination that takes place. It's not just the fact that African American males are afraid when the blue lights from the cop cars come on behind them, afraid of what might happen to them. That's bad. But there's a lot more. And 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 they just, for example, flooding. This area is prone to hurricanes. We've had a lot of hurricanes. I've lived here 8 years. We've had at least 4 or 5 hurricanes, and bad ones. Bad ones. Our community is pretty good. It's mostly a white community, but the black communities in the rural areas are not doing so well. They're flooding. The rivers are not being managed in a way to prevent flooding. And when they experience flooding, they're having difficulty getting help from the government. And it's a horrible thing, in my opinion. It's just but that's just how this area is,
Hmm. Yeah,
unfortunately.
yeah, yeah. I feel what I hear from most liberals is that, like, when it comes to getting a Democrat in power, that it's you rather want to fight them than fight the Republican Party. Like, you rather want to push them, make them uncomfortable to do what they have to do right, than having to have to do this with the Republican
Well, you see,
Party.
there's a difference, though. The
Hmm.
difference is that most Democrats, if they're progressive, in their heart, they want to do what's right for people.
The
They do.
progressive Democrats. Yeah.
Yes. They want to do what's right for people. The Republicans, on the other hand, don't give a shit unless you've got money. If you got money, you're fine. They'll
Hmm.
cut your taxes. They'll do whatever you want them to do as long as you donate to their campaigns. And you know, back in I'm not even going to say. Well, I will say it was back in the 1970s. It was back in the 1970s and early no 1970s, from 1970 to 1977. I worked on Capitol Hill for 2 congressmen. I was chief of
Hmm.
staff and press secretary. The first guy was a Republican. He was a moderate slash liberal Republican. There aren't too many of them today. Um, the second guy, who I worked for 2 years, Jim Florio, was a liberal Democrat. I found myself much more aligned with Florio and his positions, especially when it came to the environment, um, than I was with the Republican that I worked for. One time he asked me to stand in for him in a debate with his Democratic opponent before a whole bunch of senior citizens, like, I don't know, 200 or 300 senior citizens. And the question of the day was, do you support an increase in Social Security benefits? And the Democratic position was, of course. The Republican position was, no, that would cause inflation. Really? You could give all these tax breaks to gazillionaires, and that's not
Right.
going to cause inflation, right?
Right.
Yeah, come on. So I decided that was a kind of a turning point for me when I had to argue the Republican position on that issue, which I totally disagreed with. I had to argue it in favor of that position because that was a position of my boss. And I decided after that I couldn't work for him any longer. And fortunately, I was offered an equal position, a better position with Florio, the Democrat, and I was very
Hmm.
happy to accept it.
But okay, so that's a good thing, and like, that leads me to the one of the questions I wanted to ask you. When you look at Biden's policy, um, what brings out that differs from Trump besides the ones that he continued? Because the border, he continued that Trump policy. The embargoes and the sanctions, especially on Cuba, he continued those policies as well too. Um, when it comes to Social Security, they're definitely similar as well. Like, what are things about Biden that made you feel that he was different? And then we can go into Harris after that.
What do you mean that he continued Trump's policies on Social Security? He didn't continue Trump's policies on Social Security. Trump wants to cut Social Security and Medicare. He keeps saying he doesn't, but Project 2025 does it, would do it. And that's in
It
the
will.
Republican platform.
That's
So he
true.
can't
Project
run and
2025
hide
will
from
do it.
he can't run and hide from that.
Yeah.
Now, on the border, um, Trump wanted to build that wall and have Mexico pay for it. Well, Mexico didn't pay for it. He built part of the wall, and Biden stopped that. Now,
Oh
I
well,
guess
when it comes to the
they
border, I was talking about the kids that are still in the camps. They put air conditioner in there, and
what?
also I'm talking about. Remember when they had the kids in the camps inside the facilities when Pence was there? That's still going on at the border. It hasn't changed. So a lot of
Oh,
people see that and don't think that Biden did anything right for the border as well too. You know, me as a socialist, I would say open the border. I believe in open borders. But in Republicans think the borders are open now, but they're really not. He's really doing the same policies as Trump when it comes to the border. And he also funded to let Texas build a wall so they can stop complaining, which is crazy that he actually was like, "Oh, here, take this money and build this damn wall," since because there was a huge issue. You had all these radical Christians just literally like come in arms and trucks, and they were like literally ready to storm. This happened in the middle of the year, storm to the border because they thought the border was open. You know, they're inflating lies saying that millions of people are crossing the border each day, which is absolutely not true.
well,
So
what
that's
I
why
think
yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to say what I think is criminal is how Trump is branding um, most immigrants who only want to come into this country to better their lives and the lives of their families and to get
Totally
away
agree.
from danger. I
Right.
mean, a lot of those countries where they're coming from, and some of them are walking hundreds of
Right.
miles
Yes.
to get there, and then they
Yes.
get there and they're turned away, or they're told they have to go to Mexico and hang out there for I don't know how long. I think both parties have done a horrible job on immigration. However, the both parties negotiated a immigration reform bill that would have helped solve a lot of these problems. What did Trump
Was
do?
this in the Senate or the House?
It passed the House and was
Okay.
before the Senate.
Okay.
And I think that's right. I'm not sure. One or the other. It passed
We'll,
one
we'll
house.
later. Yeah. No problem.
It passed one house. And then it was the Senate. Trump called up members of the Senate and said, "Do not vote for this because I need this as an issue." He didn't give a
Mm,
crap that the
I
bill
heard
would
that.
help solve a serious problem. No,
I heard
he
that.
told them to vote against it because it would hurt his campaign if he did
Right.
not have that as an issue. That's
He did say
criminal.
that.
Oh, that's criminal.
He
The
did
guy
say
is.
that.
All right.
Sorry, Bob. I didn't mean to get you frustrated.
You didn't. I got to vent. I got to vent a little bit. I need to vent once in a while.
No, you're absolutely right. They did try to bring up something, and that and
Yeah. Yeah.
they tried to do something. It's
Yeah.
not. It's
And you
I
know
would.
what? I'll tell you something else too. Let me just interject this if I may.
Yeah.
You know, there's a whole issue of dreamers. You know dreamers? You know who dreamers are?
Yes.
Yeah. All right. So
He cut the
dreamers.
funding from them, right?
Yeah, young people who came into this country, brought into this country by their parents. These folks are undocumented, and Biden had a policy of helping them find a way to become legitimate citizens. And Trump said no. And these folks, I have a good friend who is a dreamer, and he was working in a restaurant. He had just a menial job in a restaurant. Then he was promoted to be a manager. And he worked in this restaurant. It was a Mexican restaurant here in Myrtle Beach. He worked in this restaurant for, I don't know, 2, 3 years. And he saved up his money. And he and two other partners have now opened a wonderful, beautiful restaurant here in Myrtle Beach. It's a Mexican restaurant. It's one of the most beautifully done restaurants I've ever been in. And and they did this even though they didn't do this asking anybody for anything. They did this saving their own money doing it, paying taxes. They're paying taxes. Dreamers are paying taxes. But yet Trump wants to deport them.
Yeah.
I mean, that's criminal.
In Florida, you heard about what happened in Florida, how they're having a shortage of contractors because of their immigration laws?
Yes. And in Maryland, where I'm originally from, the I guess the most popular food in Maryland is hard-shell crabs. And hard-shell crabs have to be harvested from the ocean and from the bays, and it's a lot of menial work. And then they have to be collected in baskets. They take them in baskets and they take them to a processing place. And all these immigrants are there busting these crabs open, picking the meat out, and processing the meat so it can be sold. And if it wasn't for those immigrants, that industry would die in Maryland. And some of the ironic thing is that some of the strongest Trump communities are in the areas where these workers are handling the crabs. And if it wasn't for those workers, like I said, those crab companies would go out of business, because most people don't want to do that work. I mean, it's dirty, dangerous, nasty work. But they do it. The immigrants do it, and they're happy to have the job. They're happy to have the work. And Trump would send them all back packing without any thought to. And then there's what about his call for tariffs on imported products? You buy a Japanese car and say that Japanese car costs you $35,000, and he wants to put 100% tariff on it, huh?
Yeah. Well, the issue with that though, Bob, is that Biden's doing that now with China for the EV cars, where they're being taxed 100% as well too.
Are you sure about that?
Yeah. I did an episode on it, and we had to talk about it. This was like months ago. But the reason why he's doing that is because he doesn't like the competition with China's EV cars. They turn out to be better than the Teslas. So that's why that's why they put those tariffs on. So I totally disagree with any of those tariffs on both sides. They should not be happening at all.
Well, it's not really just cars. It's not just cars. It's any product.
Right, like he did last time with 25%.
I got an email today from a guy, a doctor who lives and works in China, and he said, if you in America purchase a $10 toy that's made in China for your grandkids, that $10 toy is going to cost you $20 or $30.
Yeah, 100%. Yep.
And so he's saying he's going to get rid of inflation. What? That's a way to get rid of inflation, by doubling and tripling the cost of goods? That's crazy.
I mean, I think it's definitely a bipartisan thing from the war machine. I feel that the war machine itself wants to cripple China. They don't fully understand that their crippling of China will fully affect us because our economies are intertwined, and they made it that way. They made it that way through policies, through the one China policy, so it's definitely a dangerous game. I'm totally against that. Like tariffs on both sides. Hell yeah, that has to stop.
Oh, it's got to stop. I mean, it's ridiculous. And his arguments are not holding water. I don't think people are believing his arguments about that.
Well, what do you think that last question, what do you think is the allure for workers that look at Trump? What do you think allures them?
I think that a lot of it is that many of these MAGA people are racist to the core. And they like to hear rhetoric that gives them permission to hold those views. That's what I think. And I think it's not just racism. I think they identify with Trump's crudeness, his crude behavior, his talking about grabbing women by their privates, his his description of Arnold Palmer and alluding to the size of Arnold Palmer's penis.
Yeah, that was
totally disgusting.
That was very weird, very freaking weird.
Weird. Yeah, and then oh, come on, don't get me started, because I'm going to have to start talking about how they're accusing Haitians of eating people's dogs and cats in Springfield, Ohio. I mean, come on.
And JD Vance admitted that he lied, but then he also said that he felt he needed to say it just so people will understand what's really going on. But it was a lie.
It's a lie. It's a lie.
What are you talking about?
JD Vance is as big a liar as Trump, and he has no principles either. Here's a guy who, 2 years ago said Trump was the worst thing that ever came down the pike.
Right.
And now he
called him
a vice president. Well, I think JD Vance has a secret desire for Trump to step aside and for him to be named president of the United States. That's what I think. I think
that could be.
I think, and he's more dangerous than Trump. I think, because at least Trump is crude and he tells you flat out what he will do. And then he goes and he does it.
Yeah.
JD Vance comes off as Mr. Nice Guy and Mr. Sophisticate and all this crap. Bullshit.
Antichrist.
Yeah, absolutely. Antichrist. Absolutely. And I did a blog interview about that just the other day. Where this very learned author, a doctor, his name is Fox, did a book comparing Trump to the Antichrist and why. And it's really, really good. It's a great episode. If you guys listen to this, take a minute and go to YouTube and check it out.
And what I'm hearing from you, it seems that Trump, it's his personality, it's his unwillingness to call himself a true American that attracts a lot of workers, because we are raised with this American exceptionalism. So of course we'll see a true leader as someone who is rich and not giving a hell on what people think, and that's the idea of what a powerful leader can be. That's what we have been we've been like doctrinized to think that's what a leader should be.
Yeah. Well, I think they have a misconception of what Trump is all about. I think a lot of people think, oh, well, he's just talking. The thing is that when Trump talks, he goes and does what he says he'll do. I mean, he's done it over and over and over again. He said he'd build a wall. He built the wall, or he tried to build the wall.
He tried, yeah.
Yeah. He said he'd get rid of. He said he'd bring in all these Supreme Court justices and get rid of Roe v. Wade. He did it. You got to
yeah, the
listen to
Supreme
what he
Court's
says because
definitely did that. Yeah.
he'll do it. Don't just think, oh, he's just talking. That's crap. That's crap.
Yeah. How do you feel about the Supreme Court? I would say, lastly, that I feel that there is no need for a Supreme Court unless you make a Supreme Court that is elected, not put in for life.
Well,
so they can be held accountable.
I disagree that with your statement that we don't need a Supreme Court. We do need a Supreme Court as a final arbiter of important legal issues. However,
but isn't that what the Senate was for?
As a final arbiter of important legal issues. However,
I get to what you're saying because of court issues and all. Yeah.
Yes, but the having these justices in there for life is horrible. There needs to be term limits on these people. In my
it's
opinion.
A monarchy. It's a monarchy.
It is, and then you have people who on the Supreme Court. There are no standards, ethical standards, written down anywhere for Supreme Court justices, and so you've got one justice that's always taking money from billionaires to go on fancy trips and all this kind of stuff, and it's from people who have cases pending or potentially pending before the court. That's a conflict of interest. That's horrible, and that guy ought to be thrown out. So anyway.
Yeah. I mean, I think the only good thing about the Supreme Court right now is that they were able to get that lady in. She's definitely qualified. But I wish they'll be able to do something like that in the future. Balance it out more. All the Republicans in there.
Trust me. If Kamala Harris was the White House, that will happen.
I hope
that will happen.
I really do hope because she will be so in trouble if she doesn't.
There'll be more people of color on the court. I guarantee you that, which would be a good thing. There'll be more females on the court. I guarantee you that. That would be a good thing. There would be people on the court that would have more of a progressive point of view, and not be beholden to corporate interests. I do believe that, and I think that's an important reason to support Kamala Harris and not some third-party candidate just because you don't think that Kamala Harris is 100% perfect.
All right now, Bob. Okay, I'm still going to vote where I'm voting.
I know, but I just had to get that in.
I understand. Last thing though.
You said last thing 3 times ago.
I know. You're right. This is the actual last thing.
Go ahead.
Okay. That's how you know that I like your company.
Well, we always have a good conversation.
Yeah. But yeah, this is the official last thing because I have to go do things for my partner. I have to be a good boyfriend.
I do.
Yeah.
I just want to say one thing, and that is, Jamar, that I agree a hell of a lot more with the positions you take on issues than I do, let's say, J.D. Vance.
Oh yeah,
or Donald Trump. Okay.
Oh yeah, I figured. You're there's a real lefty in you, but you are very, very beholden to the Democrats, so you don't want the real leftiness to come out.
I'm not. No. That's not true. I'm not beholden to anybody. Actually, nobody's paying me a dime. All right.
Oh, I know. You are a true believer, and I respect that so much. Gratefully.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, you're really a true believer too, right?
Yes. I not only want true believers on my podcast.
Okay,
no fakers.
There you go.
I don't want no fakers. I'm not down for that.
No,
yeah.
I agree with that.
But last thing was the Dick Cheney situation. Are liberals afraid? Are liberals weirded out by Dick Cheney endorsing Harris over Trump?
Oh no, I think they welcome that. I think they welcome that. And Liz Cheney, appearing with Kamala Harris at rallies and town meetings. I mean, that is a remarkable thing.
Has that turned Dick Cheney left?
Huh?
Has that turned Dick Cheney more left, or is he still a right winger? Like,
No,
I
he's
just don't
still a
know Dick
right wing.
Cheney.
He's still a
Yeah.
conservative, but he took his position because, and she took her position because of the danger that they see in Trump. And
Mhm.
it's an example of putting pragmatism and realism in place when it comes to making a decision as to who to support in this election. Because they realize that if Trump gets in, that he would be a danger to our own independence and our own freedoms. And they say this over and over and over again. Trump wants to be a dictator. He said it. I'll be a dictator on day one. And that should be believed. That's what he wants. He's a big fan of Putin. He's a big fan of other autocrats, and that's what he wants. He said the other day, well, he was quoted the other day. I think it was in a new book, as saying that he needed generals like Hitler's generals were, that would do what they were told. Now, think about that for a minute. This man wants generals that would follow him to the point that they did with Hitler, where they killed 6 million Jews. Really? People aren't worried about that? Should be.
It's very, very weird things to say. I agree with you.
Yeah. Why did you
Bob,
say it?
I want to thank you so much for coming on the show. This was really, really good. So people, please check out Hijack Nation, the sequel. By the time of this recording, you should be able to have access to it. The link will be in the description below. And Bob, I want to thank you so much for coming on, and tell your wife I said hi.
Okay. She's sitting here watching this. So anyway, she wants to make sure I don't say anything I shouldn't say. So,
I think you did good.
So anyway, hey, listen, thank you, Jamar. I really enjoyed talking to you. And if you don't have a link where people can pick up this book, I'll send it to you so you could include it in the description.
Yes, definitely. And lastly, people, please donate to the information is at the bottom below right here. Go to the IG, go to Instagram and put POW Crisis Relief, and you can help displaced families in Gaza. Your funds will go right to helping displaced families with beds, tents, any type of materials they need to survive. So please go down to POW Crisis Relief on Instagram and donate to help displaced families in Gaza. This is a whole group of medical students, younger than me, medical students that are leading the charge, and they has helped over 100,000 people in Rafah, and they are helping thousands more as we speak. So please donate. And
that's great.
Without further ado, thank you so much, Bob Getty, for coming on. And you have a good day. And to everyone on Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts,